The lawyer leaned close to me and said something that made my whole body freeze. I was standing beside the wedding cake. My sister had just finished smiling for photos. The church service was over. The reception hall in Victoria Island was full of music, perfume, and loud laughter. Everyone looked happy. Then my phone started ringing for the third time. I almost ignored it. But when I answered, a calm female voice from the bank asked if I was ready to discuss the default notice on the property loan I had guaranteed 3 months earlier. I asked her to repeat herself. She did. She said I had signed as co-owner and guarantor for an 85 million naira loan tied to my late father's house in Surulere. She said the repayment had failed. She said recovery had already started. She said my personal accounts could be frozen by the end of the day. I felt my fingers go cold around the phone. I told her she had the wrong person. That was when the lawyer beside me opened a file and showed me a copy of the signature. My name was written there. My passport photograph was attached. My national identity number was correct. Even my home address was correct. When I lifted my head, my mother was staring at me. My sister had stopped smiling. My brother looked away too quickly. In that loud hall, silence suddenly felt louder than music. I still did not understand how my father's house had reached the bank. I still did not know why my family looked afraid. Everything changed because of that one moment. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone you care about. My name is Amara Okeke, and this is the day my own family taught me the price of blind loyalty. I was 34 years old when that happened. I lived in Yaba, Lagos, in a small 2-bedroom flat I rented carefully and furnished slowly. I worked as a finance manager for a shipping company near Apapa. My job was not glamorous, but it was steady. I liked steady things. I liked clean records, early mornings, and bills paid before deadlines. I liked peace more than excitement. People often said I was too calm for Lagos. Maybe they were right. I believed in saving before spending. I believed in telling the truth even when silence looked easier. I believed in helping family because that was how I was raised. I never liked borrowing money for appearances. I never chased luxury to impress strangers. If I bought something, I wanted to own it fully. I was not rich, but I was comfortable. I paid my rent on time. I drove a used Toyota Corolla. I sent money to my mother every month. I had medical insurance, a growing savings account, and a 5-year plan written in a notebook beside my bed. My biggest dream was simple. I wanted to open a small financial advisory firm one day. I wanted to help young business owners avoid the kind of mistakes that buried families in secret debt. I also wanted a home that felt emotionally safe. That dream mattered more than I admitted. At work, people trusted me with sensitive files and difficult audits. At church, older women liked me because I listened more than I talked. My friends said I carried everyone's burden as if it was my own. I laughed when they said that. I thought I was only doing what a good daughter should do. I did not drink much. I did not party often. I did not fight in public. I had learned early that calm people see what angry people miss. That calm saved me later. But at that time, standing inside that wedding hall, I was still the same woman who believed sacrifice made families stronger. I had not yet learned that sacrifice without boundaries can become an invitation to abuse. I came from a middle-class Igbo family that worked hard to look more united than we really were. My father, Chinedu Okeke, had been a secondary school principal. He was strict, fair, and respected by everyone on our street. My mother, Grace, sold fabrics for years before arthritis slowed her down. My younger brother, Kalechi, always had big plans and weak discipline. My younger sister, Sandra, had charm strong enough to make people forget her selfishness. I was the first child. That meant I carried things nobody announced openly. When school fees were late, I found a way. When my mother needed scans and medicines, I paid. When Kelechi said he needed money for a supply business, I transferred it. When Sandra said she wanted to start a beauty brand, I helped with her first rent and shelves. I never kept score. That was my first mistake. My father loved all of us, but after he died from a stroke, the balance in our home changed. My mother became softer with Sandra and more defensive around Kelechi. She said Sandra had suffered enough heartbreak. She said Kelechi only needed one chance to become successful. She said I was strong and would always be fine. Strong children hear that a lot. It sounds like praise, but sometimes it is abandonment wearing good clothes. After my father died, the family house in Surulere became more than a building. It was memory, pride, and security. It was the only major property my parents had truly built together. I helped finish the upstairs repainting after the funeral. I paid the yearly tax when money was tight. I even covered repairs when the water tank cracked. Nobody asked me to do those things. Nobody stopped me either. During holidays, cousins came around with long stories and short pockets. Auntie Bisi borrowed and delayed. Uncle Tony advised and disappeared. Sandra cried when relationships failed, and everyone rushed toward her. Kelechi blamed the economy whenever his plans collapsed. My mother always called me last because she knew I would solve the problem. If I was tired, I hid it. If I felt used, I swallowed it. I told myself family was family. I told myself love meant patience. I told myself one day they would remember every sacrifice and treat me differently. But families built on favoritism do not change because one person keeps behaving well. They only grow bolder. Still, I kept showing up. I paid for Sunday groceries. I organized my father's anniversary service. I sat through endless family meetings where other people made promises using money I had not yet earned. I smiled because I thought peace was always better than conflict. I did not know peace can become expensive when only one person is paying for it. The first strange thing happened 6 weeks before Sandra's wedding. She called me one evening and asked for a clear copy of my ID card and signature. She said the wedding planner needed it for guest security access at the hotel because I was the chief sponsor. That sounded unnecessary, but she sounded rushed and sweet. I sent the documents without thinking deeply. That was my second mistake. A week later, my mother stopped discussing wedding costs with me. That was unusual because I was paying for more than half of them. When I asked about the final budget, she said everything was under control. Sandra also stopped asking my opinion about vendors. She had once called me 10 times in a day about flowers. Suddenly, she needed nothing. Then I found a sealed envelope on my mother's dining table. It carried the name of a law firm I did not know. When I asked her about it, she folded it quickly and said it was church paperwork. Her voice sounded too fast. My mother was never a smooth liar. That was when a small fear started growing inside me. 2 days later, one of my colleagues mentioned she had seen my name during a compliance check involving a property-backed facility. She said she was not allowed to share details, but I should visit my bank if I had any pending document issues. I felt a strange heaviness in my stomach. I went to the bank the next afternoon, but the officer I needed was in a meeting. I left my number and went back to work. That night, Sandra posted pre-wedding photos in a luxury hotel suite I knew she could not afford. Her makeup artist alone probably cost more than my first monthly salary. I asked her gently how the expenses were being covered. She laughed and said love was sponsoring everything. I smiled, but the answer stayed in my mind. Then I visited the Surulere house to pick up some old family albums for the wedding slideshow. My father's study, which usually stayed open, was locked. My mother said Kelechi was checking some old files. I asked, which files? She changed the subject. That was when I knew something was moving behind my back. I just did not know how deep it had gone. I thought maybe they were hiding debt. I thought maybe they had sold land in the village. I thought maybe Sandra had married into money and wanted drama. I was completely wrong. The truth started opening slowly, like a wound that refused to stop bleeding. The morning before the wedding, I went to settle the final hotel balance. The event manager thanked me for the previous transfer and asked if I would clear the remaining amount from the same corporate account. I stared at him. I told him I had never made any earlier transfer. He showed me the payment advice. The sender was a company called SK Lux Essentials Limited. The memo line read, "Wedding final support, as agreed with Amara Okeke." I had never heard of that company before. Sandra arrived before I could ask more questions. She pulled me aside and said the groom's friends had helped. She told me not to embarrass her with too many questions on her wedding week. I wanted to believe her. I wanted peace one more time. Then came the call at the reception. After the bank officer ended the conversation, the lawyer beside me introduced himself as the bank's external counsel. He said he had been instructed to serve a pre-enforcement notice discreetly because the property matter had become urgent. He assumed I already knew about the loan. I did not. He opened the file again. The borrower was not Sandra. It was Kelechi. He had taken the loan through SK Lux Essentials Limited. The collateral was my late father's house. The co-signatory was me. The document stated that I had agreed to support my brother's import and events business because I was both financially capable and a beneficial family stakeholder. My forged signature appeared on every page. There was more. A family resolution was attached. According to that document, my mother, my brother, and my sister had all signed that they had my full consent. The resolution also claimed I had accepted a private settlement from the family and waived future objection to the property use. I had never seen the document in my life. What broke me was not the money. It was the planning. They had collected my ID. They had copied my signature. They had used my father's death, my trust, and my years of sacrifice as tools against me. And they had done it while I was paying for Sandra's wedding. When I turned to look at my family, I wanted at least one face to show shame first. My mother looked frightened. Kelechi looked trapped. Sandra looked angry. Angry, not sorry. She whispered that I should stop ruining her day. Ruining her day. That sentence cut deeper than the loan. I realized then that my pain was an inconvenience to them. My honesty had become their easiest weapon. They trusted me to stay quiet because I always had. But something had shifted inside me already. I did not shout. I did not cry in that hall. I asked the lawyer for full copies of every document. Then I left the cake table and walked toward the parking lot. I still didn't know the worst was coming. The next morning, I started with facts. I took 2 days off work and met a property lawyer named Toby Eze, a quiet man with sharp eyes and patient questions. I chose him because he spoke plainly and never tried to impress me. After reading the file, He said the signatures looked suspicious, but suspicion was not enough. We needed proof that would survive both family pressure and court review. That sentence gave me focus. I went straight to the bank with him. The first clue came from the loan application trail. The approval emails had been sent from an address that looked almost like mine. Only one letter was different. The fake address had responded to the bank, uploaded documents, and approved final terms. The recovery officer assumed it belonged to me because the name display matched my full name. Toby asked who in my family knew my email habits well. I knew the answer immediately. Kelechi. Years earlier, I had asked him to help reset my laptop after it crashed. He had seen old passwords, archived files, and scanned copies of my documents. I had forgotten that. He had not. I thought that was the end of the trick. I was completely wrong. The second clue came from the notary stamp. One signature page had been witnessed at an office in Ikeja on a Tuesday afternoon. At that exact time, I had been in a board budget meeting at work. My office attendance logs, email timestamps, and meeting minutes proved it clearly. The notary office first acted confused, then defensive. But when Tobe mentioned formal proceedings, the clerk softened. She said a woman had brought the papers on my behalf. She said the woman claimed I had a migraine and could not wait. She said an extra fee had been paid for speed. The clerk did not remember the face clearly, but she remembered the perfume. Sandra wore that exact, heavy floral perfume every day. I still wanted one possibility to be innocent. I was asking too much. The third clue came from money movement. The dispersed loan had not gone into one clean business account. It had been scattered. Some money cleared old supplier debts tied to Kelechi's failed electronics venture. Some money paid a wedding planner. Some money paid for Sandra's bridal suite. Some money went to a luxury car deposit that was later canceled. The pattern told a painful story. This was not a desperate emergency. It was a family project. I went home that evening and sat in darkness for nearly an hour. I was not trying to be dramatic. I was trying not to become someone I would hate later. Anger kept asking me to explode. Calm kept telling me to continue. The next day, Tobe requested CCTV access from the bank annex where the identity verification had been done. The footage took time, and that delay nearly broke my patience. While waiting, I visited the Surulere house again. My mother opened the door with swollen eyes. I asked her one simple question. Did you know? She started crying before speaking. That was answer enough. She said Kelechi promised the loan would last only a few weeks. She said Sandra's wedding reputation was at stake. She said the house would never truly be touched. She said they wanted to tell me after the ceremony because I was always too strict with money. Too strict with money. I asked her if she understood they had forged documents and risked a family home. She said they were afraid I would say no. I told her she was right. I would have said no. Then she said something I still remember with pain. She said, "You have always survived. Sandra is the delicate one." That sentence showed me my place in that family better than any document ever could. I left before I said something cruel. By evening, the CCTV arrived. The footage was clear enough. Sandra entered the annex wearing dark glasses and a headscarf. My mother followed a few steps behind. Kelechi came later with a man I recognized after a long stare. He was my cousin, Emeka, who often boasted about knowing people in land and document offices. Sandra handed over a file. Kelechi signed something. My mother sat quietly in the corner. No one forced any of them. No one looked confused. I watched the clip 3 times. Each time, another piece of my old life fell apart. Still, there was one missing part. How had they reached the original property documents? I thought that answer would help me understand the whole plan. I was completely wrong. The worst clue came from my father's locked study. Tobe returned there with me and asked for every file connected to the house. In a lower drawer, beneath old school records and church bulletins, we found a brown envelope addressed to me in my father's handwriting. It had never been opened. My hands started shaking before I even touched it. I thought that was the final surprise. I still didn't know the worst was waiting inside. The envelope contained 2 things. The first was a short letter from my father. He wrote it 6 months before his stroke. In it, he said he feared pressure would rise around the Surulere house after his death. He wrote that I understood responsibility better than my siblings and that he wanted me to protect the property until everyone was stable. He also said no loan, sale, or transfer should happen without my direct written approval before his personal lawyer. The second document was even stronger. It was an addendum to his will. It named me as the sole supervising signatory on any transaction involving the house until final family division. My mother could live there for life, but nobody could borrow against it, sell it, or restructure ownership without my formal consent. That meant the bank had been misled twice. The family resolution was false, and whoever helped process it had ignored clear legal restrictions. Tobe moved quickly after that. He sent the will addendum to the bank, filed for an emergency injunction, and requested a joint meeting with all parties before the matter spread further. The bank agreed because their own compliance team now realized internal checks had failed. The meeting happened 4 days later. It took place in a conference room, not a courtroom, but it felt heavier than judgment. My mother came wearing white and looking smaller than her age. Sandra came with her new husband, Femi, who looked confused and embarrassed. Kelechi arrived late and tried to act offended. Emeka came only after repeated calls from the bank. 2 compliance officers sat across from us. Tobe placed the CCTV stills, transaction trail, fake email records, and my father's letter on the table one after another. Nobody spoke for a long time. Then the bank officer asked Sandra if she had ever submitted documents on my behalf. She denied it. Tobe played the footage. The room went quiet. Then he placed hotel payment records beside the loan disbursement schedule. Bridal suite charges matched exactly. Vendor payments matched exactly. He showed the fake email address. He showed office attendance proof, proving I could not have notarized the signatures. He showed the will addendum. Kelechi tried to blame Emeka. Emeka tried to blame normal family arrangements. Sandra said everyone had agreed because the wedding could not fail publicly. My mother cried and said she only wanted peace. I finally spoke. I did not raise my voice. I said I would have helped with any honest problem. I said debt could be discussed. Wedding plans could be reduced. Business failure could be survived. But fraud built inside trust was a different kind of wound. Then Femi asked Sandra one question. He asked if she knew the wedding money came from that loan. She could not answer clearly. That silence answered him. I did not smile. I did not celebrate. I only told the truth, page after page, until no lie had space left to breathe. Justice did not arrive like thunder. It arrived like paperwork, canceled plans, and doors closing quietly. The bank withdrew enforcement against me after the fraud evidence became undeniable. They froze further action on the house and launched an internal review. They also filed a formal complaint against the actual applicants and every person who had misrepresented ownership authority. Emeka disappeared for a while after that meeting. Later, I heard he lost contracts and faced criminal investigation for document facilitation. Kelechi's company accounts were blocked pending review. The bank demanded repayment from the true borrower and moved against whatever assets he had left. There were not many. Sandra's new marriage cracked almost immediately. Femi told her he could survive hardship but not deception. Their honeymoon photos stayed online for a month, but real joy had already left them. By the third month, she had moved back to my mother's house. The wedding everyone fought to protect became a public reminder of what they had done. My mother suffered most in a different way. Church women stopped admiring her family's story. Relatives became suddenly unavailable. The same people who enjoyed our parties now whispered over plastic chairs after service. Shame sat heavily on that house. I did not create that shame. Truth did. I refused to drop the civil protections on the property. I also refused to move back into the old family rhythm where silence replaced accountability. I helped my mother arrange medical care and household bills, but I did it directly. No cash through middle hands. No emotional blackmail. No last-minute pressure. Some people called me hard. They had not seen what softness had cost me. I did not ask for revenge. I only stopped protecting people from consequences they had chosen themselves. That was enough. After the case settled into its formal process, something unexpected happened. I started breathing differently. Not because life became easy, but because confusion finally ended. At work, my managing director heard a careful version of what happened. A month later, I was promoted to regional finance lead. He said, anyone who could handle that level of personal fraud without falling apart could handle bigger responsibility. I accepted the role, but I also accepted something deeper. I was no longer ashamed of boundaries. I moved from Yaba to a quiet estate in Lekki Phase 2. The house was not huge, but it was mine in spirit and structure. I chose every curtain myself. I bought fewer things than I could afford. I wanted space, light, and silence. For the first time in years, my home felt like a place where nobody could enter through guilt. I also started weekend financial literacy sessions for young women in my church and neighborhood. I taught them how to read loan papers, protect identity documents, track spending, and say no without writing a long apology first. Those classes began with 6 people. Within months, they grew into a small community program. Helping others felt different now. It was no longer sacrifice without shape. It was service with wisdom. Around that same time, I became close to a civil engineer named David. He was steady, thoughtful, and never rushed me. He did not act threatened by my caution. He respected it. For once, care did not come with pressure attached. I learned that healthy love does not punish honesty. My mother and I still spoke, but carefully. Sandra sent 2 long messages asking for forgiveness. Kelechi called only when matters became legal. I forgave them slowly, from a safe distance. Forgiveness, I learned, does not mean returning your neck to the same knife. Peace returned to me in quiet ways. Better sleep, less fear, clearer prayers. A future I could see again. When I think about that wedding day now, I no longer remember the flowers first. I remember the moment truth entered the room and refused to leave. For years, I believed love meant endurance. I believed being the responsible one meant carrying everyone, even when my back was breaking. I believed patience would eventually teach people how to value me. It did not. Boundaries taught them faster. I still love my family, but I love myself enough now to protect what truth has rebuilt. I learned that not everyone who calls you strong deserves access to your strength. Some people will praise your calm only because it makes their selfishness easier. Some people will call you difficult the moment you stop being useful. Let them. A real family does not hide knives behind wedding songs. A real family does not sign your name in secret and call it unity. These days, I choose honesty over appearance, peace over performance, and distance over fake harmony. That choice cost me people I thought I could never lose. But it gave me myself back. And sometimes, losing the people you trusted becomes the first step toward finding the life they kept blocking.